Hey Brickmaniacs, welcome back to another socially distanced Designer's Desk episode. Today we're going to look at the ME262, so I will host from over here. We'll hear from the minifigs with Landon over there, and we'll take a look at the design with Cody from over there. So, with that being said, let's hand it over to Mr. Osell.
All right, well, here we have another iteration of the ME262 Schwalbe, or better translated, the Swallow. This is the world's first jet fighter aircraft, the first operational jet fighter. This is coming out of Germany late in the war, and its design came about that it needed to, or that the Germans needed something to better combat the bombers that the Allies had, destroying everything, all of their war production materials. So they needed speed to better
Which this
combat
was
that
incredibly fast, right?
About 560 miles an hour.
Wow.
Because the B-17 was bristling with machine guns, and they always had escort fighters flying with them, so to better combat that they figured speed. But it also proved difficult with being much faster than everything else in the air. It left you a very small window where you could attack aircraft that were slower than you, being bombers.
Oh, you fly past them.
You fly right past them. So they actually had some versions of this plane where they mounted, I don't know the size of the gun, but they mounted the cannon straight up, or small angle, slightly aiming forward out of the top of the canopy, so they could fly under the bombers and shoot upwards at them. So they pulled out a lot of stops. They tried a lot of different things with this aircraft. Some reconnaissance aircraft that just had like packed with antennas on the front. Twin-seater versions. They had ones with much larger armor-piercing tank cannon in the front.
So was this, I mean, in production-wise, you know, how much time did they have to make a significant amount of these?
Well, they never really had much of a significant amount, which
Sure.
was kind of its biggest hang-up. Had this appeared earlier in the war, it would have been much more effective. They only ended up making about 1,400 of them over the course of mid-1944 to end of 45, or when the war ended in earlier 45. So they were only around for about a year. And materials were difficult to come by, especially at that point in the war. Germans were fighting an uphill battle against the Allies once America entered the war and quickly established air superiority over the Germans. So the Americans found the best way to defeat this aircraft was to shoot it before it could take off. So they would find them on the ground, and you know, aside from just shooting, the airplanes themselves would also destroy fuel and armaments, things like that.
Keep them on the ground. That's an effective way to defeat an airplane, yeah.
And this was the springboard. After the war, every major power got their own copy of it and developed from there the American F-86 Sabre and the Boeing, I think it was the B-47 bomber. Looked pretty similar. And then that's more just coming from the sweeping wing design.
Okay.
Being more effective, especially with the F-86 Sabre. You'd see some similarities between this and that. So I made one of these a while ago. I think it was 2017. I think it was the first model I made. And that was a pretty standard color scheme. It was light gray, dark gray. I actually had white on the bottom. And I was able to incorporate more of a color scheme with this one, with developing new techniques to get it to balance properly. So the original model pretty much needed a stand, although it wouldn't sit on its landing gear too well. It was really tail heavy, and that's one of the biggest problems building with Lego and working with real world aircraft, having tricycle landing gear. And tricycle landing gear is having the wheel in the front rather than in the tail. So it wouldn't be a tail dragger, it has tricycle landing gear, which makes sense in real world when you have really heavy engines and you have 4 30mm cannons in the nose to weight the nose down. So coming up with something to solve that issue was very important for a reissue. And the solution had been staring me in the face for a long time and just kind of slipped my mind, but now I'm using it quite often, this new technique. But so having that new technique, I was able to incorporate a better color scheme, got some nice olive green, dark gray, light gray on the bottom, some nice yellow accents.
Yeah, the yellow accents are awesome.
They make it pop. Because going back in the tail, it was lacking in some detail and some proper shape, just because I was using a lighter weight piece which used to be my favorite piece.
Yeah, right.
This one. That made up the nose and the tail sections of the fuselage in my original model. Just because it's lightweight, it keeps all the weight more towards the front rather than in the back, where you don't want it. Trying to get a proper balance out of the vehicle.
It's something you would hardly think of as an amateur person playing with Legos, is like trying to get the weight distribution to work out, but also keeping the shape. I mean, that's the kind of detail that you need to have, but also is really difficult to achieve.
Especially in a small scale aircraft like this. Single seat aircraft, it's really hard to get the weight where you need it because the weighted elements tend to be quite large in Lego form. So the only thing I really kept was from the original model was the engine design. Just updated a little bit, made the intakes appear a little bit bigger because originally it was like a brick in diameter and that wasn't doing it justice. So I figured I'll just make a black 2x2 circle because those also need to be heavy to keep the weight in the front. So there's not a lot of detail I can make as far as intakes and exhaust coming out of the back. So it's just simulated that there's an intake there. And we're using this canopy again, which is, I was trying to drag it back, that doesn't work when it's balancing. That we used on the Raptor and the F-35, Lightning II. I've been using it quite a bit recently. It just has that perfect shaped way about it, and you can add some nice stickers to illustrate the rest of the canopy detail that you just kind of lack in original models.
Do you always try to go for a shield like that as opposed to the brick built with the bars and connections to make a canopy like that, or do you just go with the one that in your mind looks the most like it should? Well,
it's cost effectiveness. It's also the look of it. I find this canopy just kind of fits most of the look of things. And it's simple to use. It's better for fitting a minifigure in there. Anytime you choose to brick build a canopy surrounding a minifigure, it gets really difficult. You lose a lot of space, you lose a lot of strength. I did that in the original one, and it kind of looks a bit chunky too. It's hard to see the interior of it. It's just not really clean. I could brick build canopies. I do like other builders' designs when they do that, but they usually don't put minifigs inside of them. And our kits require us to put minifigures inside of them because we want to showcase Landon's artwork on a cool figure. So they have to coincide, go hand in hand.
There's the mass production to consider too, I suppose.
Right, yes. So that seems to work quite well. Updated printing elements. We have gun ports on the sides, one on the right, one on the left, and stickers on top actually. That's a really nice color matching by our printing department. That dark bluish gray looks almost exactly like dark bluish gray. Oh yeah, no, that's not, tricked me. I thought something was printed when it's really a sticker.
That's how good those stickers are.
Yeah, that's how good the stickers are. Printing of the ejection ports for the 30 millimeter guns, four there just represented underneath. I thought it was justifiable to have a printed element underneath. Gives you an excuse to look at the light gray underside and see the details.
Plus when you're swooshing it over your head, right? You want to be able to look up and see something.
Retractable landing gear, of course. And it's pretty simple. It just collapses right back up into the fuselage.
Simple landing gears make people happy.
Simple landing gears make me happy. It is more complicated than that, but having a brick wide door to cover up the front landing gear is really difficult. I think, no, actually I didn't have a landing gear door in the front, the original model either, but this seemed to work. And of course, going back to that technique of having a weighted front end reduced my ability to have more playability in the landing gear design. But it
still tucks up in there.
It's sitting down most of the time anyways. It's rare that you'd be flying it around the room constantly. So I like to have landing gear look best when it's down, sitting on the ground. That's kind of my thing. Printing in the inside of the cockpit actually too. That's a brand new printed element that Landon came up with.
Nice.
So that's cool. Got a detailed cockpit too. And there was sort of an unintentional added playability feature that you can open up the sides here. You see it pretty commonly, but the gear or the doors here would be more forward. And that's just to access the guns, reload them. And I just built it this way to have a nice curvature.
But now you can work it into your mock.
Yeah, you can kind of work it into your mock. It is a little bit inaccurate, but I figured, oh, might as well just show it off because it's pretty close to how it is in real life. I think that's about all I got to say about that.
That about does it? Okay, fair enough. Well, there you go. There's a little look at the new ME262, now perfectly balanced on its tricycle landing gear. With that, let's turn it over to Landon and take a little closer look at the figure included with this kit.
All right, here we have a late war German pilot. You've seen this artwork before. It's kind of a tried and true artwork. So we're using it again for this kit.
Very intimidating, though. The all
yeah,
black
I mean,
is a fierce-looking pilot.
Oh yeah, and I think they knew that. It's like this guy looks really intense. So yeah, on the top we have just a plain. We're starting off with a Lego black head actually, and that's sort of simulating that pilot's cap, sort of a more form-fitting pilot cap compared to some. And then we're printing that flesh right on there, so you can kind of see it peeking through above the goggles. Those goggles are, again, like a late war goggles that you'd see, and a little bit of a distinction compared to some other countries is that they're pretty small and almost, they're kind of like bug-eyed
eyes? Yeah,
really,
that's cool.
It's a cool piece for that era. A simulated skyline or horizon on those goggles, just to kind of give it a bit more of that depth. Oxygen mask. And then moving on down to the torso, we have the Iron Cross that he's wearing around his neck. So that's a nice leather jacket with some simulated leather texture. You can see on the front a little bit, and even on the back. There's a bit of a gloss print that we're doing to get that simulated leather. So on the belt, you have a pistol holster and a really big oversized watch that is the B-UHR BUR pilot's watch. Pretty sought after amongst watch collectors. It's like a 55 millimeter face, the dial on that
That's
watch.
just huge.
Just so they can have quick instant recognition for just coordinating attacks and whatnot.
Don't want to spend time fumbling with your watch.
Right, just instant recognition. So that's a cool detail. And moving down, we have the electrically heated boots that kind of came on the scene later in the war. So they plugged right into the airplane and kept your feet warm.
Flying comfort.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the figure for this kit.
So there you have it. This is the Designer's Desk episode for the ME262, newly redesigned by Cody Ocell. Make sure to let us know what you think about this model in the comments. Otherwise, tune in next time, and thanks for watching.